Hello everybody, it's Brandon and Connor here in Salisbury, North Carolina with Explore Charlotte, and we're filming the Salisbury Prison location from the Civil War, which was a historic place. It was considered one of the most brutal prisons in America during the Civil War, and it was where Union soldiers were captured and kept during the Civil War. It became infamous because the prison was only built for 2,500 people, but it ended up housing over 10,000 Union soldiers who many, over 10,000 or 11,000 ended up dying due to exposure, disease, and other things. And they were dumped shortly away from here. But right behind us is the last original building from the Salisbury Prison. And it is the garrison that held the soldiers, or the Southern Confederate guards who monitored the entrance to the prison, which was just 40 yards down this way. So we're gonna go take a walk and check out the garrison, and we hope you guys will join us. Thank you. And now we are walking to go film this Garrison House. I mean, that might be an original door. I see O-N. I think it's O. No, that's not an O. That's a D. D-N-E-S-T-I-T. D-N-E-S-T-I-T. I have no idea what that would mean. Is that original knocker? That's crazy, man. Doors made just out of wood planks. That's wild. That's wild. There's train tracks right there. So literally right there is train tracks. Can't see them from here because they're really down low. So it's like a trench that goes down there with train tracks. That's the actual train line, I believe, that they used to bring Union soldiers in and out of here to the prison. I believe that is the original railroad. I don't know what this is. And when I was researching, I didn't expect to find this. Looks like a well. That's where the well is. That's the well. There's the railroad tracks. There's the railroad tracks that brought the soldiers in and out, the Union soldiers in and out of here. Let's walk around back. Very cool. Look at this. You hear that? What? It's the doorbell? Are you kidding me? That's how they did doorbells. I've never seen anything like this.
Whoa.
That's a doorbell. I learned something. Connor, look, bud, you want an apple? Want an apple?
Yeah.
Get it. You do it. All right, go take it to him. Oh, nice. That was so cool, huh?
Here, try this.
Wow.
Really good.
Dude, that apple is amazing. It's a Granny Smith, I think. Fresh off the tree. It's first time. First time. Now this location stood here during the time of the Salisbury Prison and the Civil War. The reason it was not burned down with the prison after the war was because it was not property of the Confederacy. And so today it still stands. So here is a monument honoring the supposed 11,700 soldiers buried here from the Union. And as represented by the number 11,700 there. And there it says this monument was erected by Act of Congress approved March 3rd, 1873, to the memory of the unknown Union soldiers who died in the Confederate prison at Salisbury, North Carolina. Running right down through this property is a dugout trench, a little canal that a creek runs through. And I was told by Clyde, the owner of the Garrison property that we were just at, that was actually used as a latrine by the Confederate soldiers. We're on the back side of the memorial that I just showed you. And this says, in 18 trenches, just south of this spot, rest the bodies of 11,700 soldiers of the United States Army who perished during the years of 1864 and 1865 while held by the Confederate military authorities as prisoners of war in a stockade near this place. So just a little more education on exactly what this is. So we're talking about the Salisbury Prison. The Salisbury Prison was one of the most notorious Civil War prisons. When Union soldiers were captured, no matter where they were captured, they were often brought down to the Salisbury Prison. Sometimes they would go to the Richmond Libby Prison. Sometimes they would go to the Andersonville Prison. But either way, this was considered one of the most notorious prisons. When they found out they were coming here, they often realized they were never going home. Because of that, they often never spoke of home. The prisoners would sit just outside the gates of this cemetery was the back of the prison. And the soldiers would often sit and do anything they could to survive, but they never talked about home because they really never believed they were going home. So basically, the prison was designed for 2,500 Union prisoners. But because of the way they were capturing soldiers at large numbers of Union soldiers, they just started dumping them in the prisons. And so the prison swelled to over 10,000 people at one time. It was only designed for 2,500. So they would put out tents for the soldiers. The problem is, tents were only designed for 5 people, but they would assign 10 people per tent. Oftentimes this meant that these soldiers who were lying in the ground behind me, they were left to devise their own way to survive. And many times that meant grabbing glass shards or something like that, and digging holes. And what they essentially would do, guys, they had no clothes. They would have their clothes taken away for the most part. Anything of value they had, the Confederate soldiers would take away. And what they would often do is dig trenches to sleep in. And it was almost like an early grave. And they would dig the trench just to get away from some of the weather. But unfortunately, oftentimes it didn't do much good. These soldiers were not fed. A lot of times, trains were sent down with supplies to feed them and to nourish the soldiers, and for the most part the Confederate guards would take all of that away. And so most of these gentlemen, these Union soldiers, most of them young boys, that are all in the ground behind me, died from starvation, from weather, and diseases. And it's very, very sad. One of the gentlemen was a soldier named Drummond. And Drummond was from New York, and he lasted through the end of the war because the prison was destroyed there towards the end, and he did make it out. And he often came back to this cemetery to relive what happened in those days. And so there's books with his reminiscing of this prison and this cemetery. And it's just fascinating, and it's hard to even be here and try to put yourself in that mindset. And right here are the 18 trenches. In this small space, the corpses of 11,700 Union soldiers are buried. Nameless, many. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing to think that right in here are so many dead Union soldiers just dumped in trenches, each trench being identified by a marker. And there are 18 of them. Such a sad, sad way. And if you think about how these people died, it's even more sad. And there again is the monument from the state of Maine to honor its soldiers that lie in the ground here in this cemetery. The meaning of this passage behind me, talking about briberies and their loyalty, comes from the fact that Confederate soldiers and guards would often bribe them to defect to the side of the Confederacy. And they would do that by offering them jobs, making shoes and buttons and things like that for the Confederate guards. Almost every time, the Union soldiers refused to convert over to the Confederate side. It's pretty amazing to stand here in this cemetery and hear the whistle of a train going down the tracks from the very track that was used to bring Union soldiers to most likely their death, where they would end up being laid here at Salisbury Prison. Almost every one of these soldiers was brought in on that train track. Still hard to believe. Now, I was told by our new friend Clyde that there's actually some historical significance to this canal, as this canal went all the way into the prison, and this canal was often used as a latrine by the Confederate soldiers and guards. Right up here is the monument from the state of Pennsylvania for its prisoners of war. And up on top, there is I believe that's bronze, a POW. This right here is a Confederate monument here in Salisbury, North Carolina. And that is of an angel named Fame holding a dying Confederate soldier with a gun in his hand, and she is about to place a crown on his head. Obviously, this has some debate going on around here about removing this statue, but it's been here since 1908. It was built in 1905. And it still stands today, over 100 years later. A cool tidbit that I did not know. Oh, church bells. President Washington was a visitor in the town of Salisbury, May 30th and 31st, 1791. Now, local to this area are granite quarries, and you can see this pink granite, which is local here.
That's actually where the granite for Elvis's grave came from. Right here. Now, obviously, slavery was a big issue here around the time of the Civil War. And there is a collar for a slave that was owned here in Salisbury, North Carolina. This book is from 1857, and it's entitled Impending Crisis in the South. Pretty cool. And here's an actual uniform from a man named William Chambers Guggenhauer from the Confederate Army. He was a guard of the actual Salisbury Prison here in town. And those are his boots that he wore as he guarded the town. And his rifle, his pistol, and another rifle. That's history right there. So here is an image or a drawing of the prison itself. And when we were at the guard tower, the guardhouse, that's it right there. And you can see the train tracks right there that went down just as we saw. They go down into a trench. And so that's still there today. The train tracks are still there today.
The train was just right
and then, yeah, and then right across that bridge right there is where the prison entrance is. And then the cemetery would be down here. And so there was the cotton mill. And then you can see all the tents they had out. And that is a Confederate calendar carried by Confederate soldiers. And here, to pass time, soldiers played with marbles made out of clay. Here are actual bricks from the prison. That's crazy. It's from the cotton mill. If only those bricks could speak. Incredible. So this cannonball here was found on York Hill, which is right nearby, and it was used to fight off the Union troops, and it was one of the last Confederate victories in the Civil War. Right there. Early 20th century casket.
That's all for today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for following Explore Charlotte. If you haven't yet, make sure you click that thumbs up button and click subscribe so that you can be updated anytime we have a new video. Thank you to Connor for joining me. And Connor has a YouTube channel, so what's the name of your YouTube channel, Connor?
Extreme Vids with an X.
Extreme Vids with an X. We'll put the link down in this video, but please give a thumbs up, give a like, give a share, follow us on Facebook. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
you.